Hi everyone, I'm here with the update from my oncologist. So last night I had a phone call with my oncologist. That was Thursday night. I think in my video I said it was going to be Wednesday, but I misspoke. So this is Friday, and last night I had the call with my oncologist. So you're getting the update as soon as most of my family is, except for my immediate family, which I told right away. Anyway, my oncologist called last night, and we had a telemed appointment, and we talked about everything that had gone on in the past 2 months since I've seen him. And he was he didn't, of course, like the way the numbers were going, and said, yes, we're going to have to start treatment. But the way the numbers are going up so fast, we both talked about the different oral treatments and agreed that probably need to hit it with something harder. And we talked about the options, and the best option for me is actually to try to use the drug that I was on at first that made me very sick because I had a reaction, but I was also overdosed with it. So I was given 9 treatments instead of 8, and I was given them weekly when usually they give you a week off between treatments. So I should have had several weeks off during that treatment cycle, at least like 2 weeks on, 1 week off, or something like that. So I was given a lot more than that my doctor now would have given me. And we looked at it, and he says, you know, we may even be able to fully control the disease with 1 treatment every 8 weeks. So we're going to look at that. And the one thing that he said is that I'm planning on going to Maine, and he said that he'd like to see 1 more data point before I go to Maine. And hopefully that number will be better because, I didn't talk, I went off track. So about the kidneys. So basically, because my kidneys weren't working very well, my body was not flushing out the capillate chains. It was holding on to them. So he thinks now that my kidneys are starting to work better again, the capillate chains could flush out, and my numbers could go down. So that's a possibility. But if that doesn't happen, then I will either start chemo and have 1 treatment before I go to Maine, or start immediately after I get back from Maine, depending on what the number looks like when I go to get the blood drawn in like a week and a half. I'm going to get it drawn so that I have the results in time to be able to make the decision about going to Maine or not. So I basically have to back up the days and figure out the day to get the blood drawn for that. But I imagine about 10 days would be about the right time. Yeah. So that's that. Not in remission anymore. Looking at going back on the drug I was initially treated with called daratumumab, which I had a very bad reaction to, in which it killed like all my NK cells, and I was very sick for a long time. But I was also given very high doses, and more than I should have been given. So I really trust the doctor that I'm working with now, especially after going through everything I've been through with him, compared to the other doctors that I've had in the past. So I feel good about his recommendations. So that's the health update. I also was going to show you guys some of my polymer clay work and some other stuff, because I wanted to talk to you guys about how I managed the anxiety over these years. So I'm not going to show any of the clay work in this video. I'll show it in another video. I'm actually have it all set up, so I'll record it right after this. But I do want to talk about why I got started doing polymer clay work and how that sort of progressed for me. So in 2018, I was initially diagnosed with the multiple myeloma, and this was after 4 or 5 years of having pretty noticeable symptoms, including night sweats and getting sick every time I went out. And this was a long time ago, so I was far from menopausal or even perimenopausal at the time. Doctors couldn't find what was wrong with me. A lot of doctors gaslit me, except not my family doctor. At the time, I was seeing one doctor in the practice who unfortunately passed away, and now I'm still seeing her partner. And at no time did anyone in that practice ever gaslight me, and they were always on my side. He and she, the previous doctor was a woman, but now I'm with a man, would give me one referral after another to try to help me find my answers, and they always believed in me. And I can't tell you how important that is, because even family members were like, is she really sick? All these doctors are saying she isn't. Well, in 2018, they ran the test, and my kappa light chains were over 3,000. I think they were like 3,300, and it was absolutely sky high. They could not believe it. If it wasn't for an immunologist at Penn running a test after I begged her to, she found it after all those years. I went into treatment when my kappa light chains hit 5,500. And I went into treatment in 2019, and I continued with treatment, and I got very, very sick, and I ended up having to use up all of my leave from work, etc., and eventually having to go out on disability in 2022. So I held it out for a while, and I was especially able to hold it out because my job was, I owned 2 companies that I ran, which I slowly shut down, but my job was also only 30 hours a week. So I was able to, between the fact that I had banked up a fair amount of sick leave, etc., really stretch out before I had to go out on disability. But unfortunately, when it came to the point when the company really needed someone in there full time to do a lot of work, I couldn't step up and do it. And they weren't really feeling like hiring somebody to help me out. So I went out on disability, and I think it was the best for everybody. So no hard feelings there. In fact, no hard feelings at all. I went out on disability in 2022. And they kept me on their insurance plan 2023 and 2024 so that I could fully get my stem cell transplant covered, because I knew it was covered under their plan. I didn't know if Medicare would do it. And Medicare, it takes 2 years from when you apply for Medicare for you to get coverage. No, 2 years from being disabled to get Medicare coverage. And so they held, maybe it was 2021 I went out on disability. Well, I got Medicare in the middle of 2024. So I don't know. But it takes basically 2 years from when you go out on disability to qualify for Medicare. I'm on Medicare now, and so now they are no longer carrying me on their insurance, and I'm no longer an employee. But for that whole 2 years, they had me on their insurance, and I paid just my employee part, and that was it. So they have, from the beginning to the end, that company did pretty much right by me. So I can't complain, especially when it was the company that originally hired me before they were taken over. So they were just such wonderful, good people, Midwest people. Anyway, I digress. So after I left and stopped working, I was full of anxiety. And one of the things I found was doing things with my hands really helped me deal with the anxiety. So for anybody going through cancer treatment right now, or you're having to stop work or slow down work, if you find that you're thinking about things a lot, your mind gets turning, there's nothing better than finding something that you can do meditative with your hands. For me, it was working with polymer clay. And I mean, it was real, you really have to work it and forming those flowers and making those canes and stretching those canes and all of that work. And then when it got to the point when that was too hard for me, because I did get so sick that it was too hard for me to do the polymer clay work, I took up watercolor. And so I would hold the brush and just paint, and it would look whatever. It could look like crap, but it was just, this was a meditative, and looking at the different colors on the page, it allowed me to get through and to process things that if you're just thinking about them over and over and over again in your mind, you may think you're processing it, but you're not. You're just repeating an old circuit. You're just making that circuit get stronger in your head. Instead, work with your hands. If you find that it's really something traumatic, I had some very traumatic experiences of not being heard in my initial treatment. You may need to do something called like EMDR or EFT, where you move your eyes back and forth or tap to engage your body and mind. Looking back and forth engages both sides of your brain, just to help you process that. But you'll find that doing arts and crafts, going back and forth with the clay, and I'm, in the back of my mind, I'm processing the fact that the doctor didn't listen to me or didn't do this, but I'm doing my clay and I'm working it and I'm doing this. And it's an indirect way. Instead of going to the psychiatrist and looking at the light box and going back and forth, it's another way of getting through and processing these emotions. And you may end up getting good at something. One thing that ended up happening is, even though I had to stop doing the clay after about a year, I got good enough with it that I was able to take in my clay work when I went in for my stem cell transplant. And everybody was thrilled. All the doctors and nurses took pens. I have like pens, rings, earrings, all kinds of things I made, and I'm going to make another video showing you what I have left. Keep in mind, it's the dredges that are left, but I'm hoping that I'm going to feel well enough to get back into doing my polymer clay work again. I just started picking up my watercolors again a couple weeks ago. So, and I'm feeling like I could get strong enough to maybe take on projects where like I do it for maybe 15 minutes and then rest and then a little more or something like that. But anyway, that's all from me for today for this video. I'm going to shoot another video showing off my polymer clay works for anyone who's interested in seeing it. I love you all so much, and thank you all so much for your prayers. Also, I tried to do it sideways. Let's see how this comes out. Bye.